Have you ever met the connector? Well, he ponders, he helps, he creates, he writes, he speaks. He basically connects people and brings them together. I speak about Paul Solano of PS&All Marketing Group. At PSANDALLMARKETINGGROUP.com, you will receive an assembled group of Paul's contacts and connections that cross into many sectors of life. Please contact Paul Solano at 617-240-4130 or PSANDALLMARKETINGGROUP@gmail.com if you are in the market for a wide array of services. Again, please contact the connector, Paul Solano, at 617-240-4130 or PSANDALLMARKETINGGROUP@gmail.com with any questions. And now, here's Paul Solano, the host of Paul Ponders.
Welcome to Paul Ponders. My name is Paul Solano of PS&All Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com. Thank you for joining me for my foray into podcasting. It is great to be collaborating with my friend and associate, Chalonzo Amos of PodPro Entertainment, to bring you some fun, exciting, and informative podcasts. For many years, I've been referred to as the connector, or in Greater Boston circles as the connector. With PSANDALLMARKETINGGROUP.com, I've created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please sit back and relax and listen to today's podcast. If you are driving or operating heavy machinery and just listening, then please just listen and stay focused on your task at hand. Thanks again for listening. Enjoy my ponderings. Let #PaulPonders begin.
Greetings, everyone. How is everyone doing today? It is #PaulPonders. How are you? Well, I am doing well. And one of the reasons why I'm doing well is because of all the great support that I have been getting on this #PaulPonders. And a lot of it has to do because of Techie Chalonzo in the control booth, behind the curtain, PodPro Entertainment, your great platform for hearing so many wonderful, wonderful podcasts. And I want to thank you all for subscribing, rating, reviewing, and making it happen. And it is true. People do see me and stop me at Stop and Shop. They stop me at Pearl Street Station. They say, Paul, what a great podcast. Last week was just tremendous. Keep up the great work. And I say thank you. Thank you for subscribing and making it happen with #PaulPonders, part of PS&All Marketing Group, and of course, PodPro Entertainment. Well, this episode that I have coming up that we're on right now is going to be another great episode, and it features a longtime friend of mine. His name is Dave Caiazzo. And Dave, I want to welcome you.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Great to have you here. And Dave, among many other things, and I'll have you introduce yourself and what you're all about. I just wanted to give that shout out to the great book that you wrote quite a few years ago, and it's called Life Tried to Throw Me a Curveball. I Overcame Diabetes to Become a Pro. And it's also available in audiobook form, and that's near and dear to my heart, as well as yours. And that audiobook is available through PSANDALLMARKETINGGROUP.com. But we could talk about that in another episode. But let's talk about you, and I want to focus in on one aspect of your career. But Dave, again, welcome, and thanks for being here.
No problem, Paul.
Excuse me, Dave, if you just want to let our listeners know what you're all about.
Sure. Well, I started like most ball players do, Paul, at a young age, and I wanted it from the day I stepped on the ball field, like 6 years old. And I just wanted to pursue a baseball career, which I was fortunate enough to do. And I worked hard, and I think I worked harder than anybody at improving my skills and doing what I had to do to become a pro. And along the way, I of course, I got to the high school level and I had a great high school career. And, I still have a record, I believe, in Massachusetts with 20 strikeouts in eight innings. And that's how many years ago, Paul? Since 1972, I graduated. So that's 51 years, 52 years.
And the record still stands.
Still stands. So I'm very proud of that. And then from that point, I went on to junior college and had great 2 years there. We were ranked nationally, and I was a combination All-American designated hitter pitcher. So people just thought I was a pitcher, Paul, but I led the nation in home runs. My second year, I led the nation with like 12. And so anyway, I was very fortunate there, and I had to make a choice of whether I wanted to be a hitter or a pitcher. And then I got recruited by so many schools all over the country. And I chose, because I liked the head coach more than anything, I decided to go to the University of New Haven and play for the legendary Frank Porky Vieira, who's still alive to this day. Just spoke with him yesterday. One of the all-time greats, if not arguably the greatest. And I had 2 great years there where I was All-American, and I ended up 11-1 my junior year and 11-1 my senior year. And the only 2 losses I had, Paul, were with 1 day's rest, and then I lost a 1-0 game on an error. So I conceivably could have been undefeated. So, I mean, I just had a great career there as well. And then from there, I went up to play in Maine. I went up to New Brunswick, Canada. And then I went, I signed my pro contract with the Phillies and ended up in the Pioneer League in Butte, Montana. And I also had an offer to go to Italy, big offer, I would have been the highest paid player ever in Italy. And because I got the offer from the Phillies, I took that, of course. So that's a little rundown. I had, of course, I coached at the University of New Haven. I coached at the University of Bridgeport. I coached at MIT. I had my baseball camp for 27, 28 years. I've coached everybody, so there's really nothing that I haven't done, I guess you might want to say, in baseball. And I'm proud of that because I tried to help kids and work with them and improve their skills. And I think I've done that.
That's great. And that's a great summation of a great career. And I congratulate you on a great baseball career and really impacting and affecting so many lives in such a positive way. And also, Dave, the timeliness of this episode is that we're airing this right before the Major League Baseball season starts. And a lot of people are questioning what the Boston Red Sox are going to be doing. And I know you're more of a Yankees fan and all, but you are around a bunch of Fenway faithful and Red Sox Nation. And the talk out in the street is that the Red Sox just really are not doing a whole lot. They're building their team through their farm system, which has to do with scouting, which you've done for many years in the course of your career. So if you want to let our listeners know what you would recommend the Red Sox do, what your idea of scouting is, and what does a Major League Baseball scout do? Take it away.
Well, Paul, it's interesting because, I always preferred to play rather than scouting. Second, that was secondary because of my career ended with the bad arm and so on. So I got pursued by the Cleveland Indians to scout. So that's how I got into it. And I was very fortunate because, playing was my first love, but where I couldn't play anymore, I wanted to stay in the game, and they pursued me, and I signed with them and then went on with the Los Angeles and California Angels as well. But it's a lot of travel. You sometimes have to be in more than one place at the same time. It's hard to believe, but they expect you to do this stuff, believe it or not. And I've gotten in arguments with my bosses, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I mean, I've tried to help people, and I was at, we've had local kids, Jeff Allison, number one pick. We've had Justin Crisafoli from Medford. I've signed, Eric Thomas, Ed Semke, T.T. Gallagher, Steve Donahue, and all these guys that I've helped. And a lot of my, not a lot of them, but some of them, like my boss didn't he didn't agree with me on signing them. And I pushed them, and I said, look, you know my background. These kids can play. And he finally agreed with me, and he got them contracts. And we signed them, and some of them had good careers. And, Eric Thomas, for instance, he got drafted in the third round. I'm sorry, he went in the third round afterward, but he got originally drafted in the 15th round. And his father called me up. His father was Mel, and he called me up. He said, Dave, what should we do? Eric got drafted, in the 15th round. And I said, how much they offer him? And he told me, and I said, they undercut him. He should be getting more. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. He said, what should we do? And I said, well, you trust me, don't you? And he goes, yeah, that's why we're calling you. And I said, you tell the Tigers, that's who he got drafted by, tell the Tigers that you want, I think it was like $10,000 more. Otherwise, you're going to school. You're going to go to transfer to another school. And he said, really? And I said, I'm telling you, trust me, Mel. So he did. And he called me back and he said, they said no, Dave. And I said, that's okay. You're going to transfer. You're going to get a ton more money. When I tell you a ton, you're going to quadruple or even more money than you had offered right here. So trust me. And he says, we do, Dave. That's why we called you. He transferred. Next year, he got drafted in the second round, third round, got $500,000 back in that day, $500,000. That was big, big money. And he hung around for a long time. And as it turns out, he ended up with Tommy John surgery, and he came back and he pitched another couple of years after that as well. But these are some of the stories. And then I got an argument with my boss on a kid. We were having a tryout camp in Lowell, and I was working with the pitchers in the bullpen. His name was Mike Marini from Lynn. And I says, Mike, where do you plan on going to school next year? And he says, I'm not settled in on anything yet. I said, but you want to play? He goes, oh, yeah. And I liked him. And I said, well, I can get you a scholarship. You ever hear of the University of New Haven? He says, New Haven? His eyes opened up. And I says, yeah. He says, I went there, and I still work with them. I can get you a scholarship there. And I said, but we'll talk afterwards. Somewhere during the camp, one of my boss's friends that were helping out, must have said, oh, Caiazzo's hoping the kid get into New Haven. And this other guy was working for Lowell, and there was a competition with New Haven. So that's why he was trying to stop me from doing it. And my boss came up to me and he says, Dave, we don't want you to use this as a stepping stone for New Haven baseball. And I says, you telling me I can't help a kid get a scholarship? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, I'm out of here. And I walked out of the park. He followed me right to my car. I was taking my plates off. And he says, Dave, don't go. Where you going? I said, don't you tell me that I can't help a kid get scholarship when he needs it. I says, I'm here to help people. I'm not trying to play games with anyone. And he begged me. And he says, I respect you so much, and I want you in our organization to stay, this and that. So turns out I went out in that confrontation, and I helped the kid, and he got a scholarship to New Haven. And just one of the things that I like to do. And so, you have these little run-ins once in a while, but that wasn't going to change my thinking of how I was going to do things. And going back to what you said about the Red Sox, they need a lot of help, Paul. Unfortunately, we see that. It really stems from ownership. It really does. I think they get their hands in too many things now that just aren't baseball related, and they're putting as much focus or more focus on those rather than the Red Sox. And I think they have to build up that farm system. They're not, I don't think they have the right people, and I'm not saying everybody, trust me, but I'm just saying I don't think they have the right people working in that organization anymore. And, I knew when I was scouting, a couple of the people they had back then in the big wheels in the office, I was saying, not so keen on them. And it turns out they ended up getting fired or whatever, but they work on a lot of things. And I think that it starts with ownership. And if the ownership isn't going to dish out any money, then nothing's going to work. It's hard to really get top-notch plays if you're not dishing out the money, especially in today's day and age, Paul. So they have a lot of things to work on, when they're signing, people that are already past their prime, and it's just not gonna. I don't see it working. I mean, there are instances where things will turn around for a surprise for a year or so, but I can't see it happening really. But it's going to be a long year, I think.
Well, it's something where it's really a building process and just making it happen to put the team on the field and just have a very, very capable lineup, if you will, entertaining lineup, I think is really important. But when I look at other sports and I look at, like, say, basketball, we'll say the Dunbars and the DeMathers of the world, those are hotbeds in the D.C., Maryland area. And where do you see the hotbeds for baseball players these days in the United States and also abroad?
Are you talking about, like, where are they grabbing them from?
Yes, yeah.
Well, I mean, now it seems like the Dominican is big. I mean, they're getting a lot of Dominican players, and I played with one of the greats of all time, Julio Franco, in the minor leagues, and Julio was something. But they're getting all these. If you look at the Major League Baseball now, you're watching a game, 75%, 70% of them are all come from another country, or whatever, and it's not like the old days, Paul. It's just the American-born players anymore. Now they're coming from everywhere. Cuba, I mean, you had some Cuban players, Tony Oliva and those guys back in the day, but now there's more of them, and baseball is so it's thinned out. It's thinned out dramatically, and it's sad to see. I mean, I get sick. I really do when I'm watching these games now. I really do. And I say, oh, my God, it seems like the people my age, your age, or whatever, you're watching the game now. It's just not the same. And they have to get them. They're trying to, I don't know if they're rushing them to the major leagues, Paul, but, there's so many teams now and so many, the players are getting hurt left and right. And it's unbelievable. And I don't think the trainers are doing their job properly. I don't know if they're qualified because there's just too many injuries. I mean, in a day, Paul, I was pitching with an injury. Today I'd be out. I'd be under the knife. And I was pitching with that injury. And I was scared to say that I was really hurt as bad as I was. And so it's thinned out so much. And these injuries, it's just guys are coming down with injuries left and right. They can't even go. You see the pitchers; they're not even going 5 innings. They can't even go 5 innings. I used to throw 3 9-inning games in a week, and I threw a couple times. I pitched a 9-inning game, the first game of a doubleheader, and then I'd come in relief for 2 or 3 innings in the second game of the doubleheader. And I mean, these guys can't even go 4 or 5 innings. And then when they go 4 or 5 innings, they're giving up 8 runs besides it. I mean, if I gave up 1 run in 9 innings, I wouldn't talk to anybody in my family until my next start. And that's the difference, I think.
Well, I don't know who said that it's not the high price of stardom that's ruined the sport. It's the high price of mediocrity. And you have so many players out there who really just aren't that great, but they're making millions upon millions of dollars. It's crazy.
It really is. And you know, you think about like Mickey Mantle one time. I think he hit for the he hit won the Triple Crown. He went in to negotiate his contract, and they said, "Well, Mick, you won the Triple Crown, but you didn't hit quite as high as you did last. Instead of hitting 357 like you did last year or the year before last, you hit 347. Even though you hit 50 home runs and knocked in 100 runs, we're going to give you a $10,000 pay cut." And he did. He had to take a pay cut.
Wow.
You know, he wouldn't have to work the rest of his life just on that contract alone, you know.
Just like that saying, you're only as good as the last thing you do.
That's true.
So true in so many things in life.
Yeah.
So when we look at the scouting aspect and we look at your past experience with baseball camps, what did you enjoy most about the baseball camps you did for over 25, 26 years?
Well, I like to improve the kids. That was my objective, obviously, but I loved working with the kids. I loved to see if I could make improvement any way possible. I always tell the kids, I says, look, I'm going to help you. You'll get better. But I'm not saying you're going to be a pro because there's only so many pros that can play. You know, very few around here. But I used to tell them, I'll improve you. But there's no guarantee you're going to be a pro. So I always work to try to make someone better. And no one impressed me, Paul. I got to be honest with you. No one impressed me growing up. I mean, when I was playing, no one impressed me. I mean, I had my idols, of course, Mickey Mantle and guys like that. Those guys, you can't help but be impressed. But I'm talking about guys around here and even guys, most of the guys in the major leagues. No one impressed me. And that's the way I was. You know, when I was on the field, I wanted to entertain people. When I went out to that mound, Paul, or played in the field, I wanted to entertain. So people used to come down to watch me play. They'd come down just to see me play. I had, you know, people, I remember in the minor leagues, I had a guy, we were playing the Toronto Blue Jays, and we were playing them in, not Calgary, but up in Canada, Medicine Hat. And we were up there, and I was shagging before the game started, and a guy called me over, or the guys, one of my teammates said, Dave, there's a guy over on the side, he keeps asking us to get you, and go say hi to him. So I walked over. The guy was up in Canada, but he was originally from New Haven, Connecticut. He says, Dave, I saw you pitch a number of times at New Haven. I just moved out here, and how's Porky Vieira and this and that. So, I mean, these people travel everywhere to see you. And he said, I found out that you were playing, and I want to come and see you. And but I wasn't, you know, I mean, I when I went out to that mound, Paul, I tried to entertain people. I never wanted anybody to leave that ballpark not happy or not pleased that they saw Dave Caiazzo and he didn't perform properly. So same thing with these kids at the camp. You know, I wanted them to become something. You know, I wanted them to become something. I says, you know, there's no limits. You know, anybody can do it, especially today. Anybody can make it. It's no big deal. You know, now it really isn't, you know, but back in the day it was. But when I was doing the camps, I tried to tell the kids about work ethic and how to make themselves better and what type of an attitude to have. You know, when these kids today, you know, they just don't even have the right attitude. But I used to say, work hard, you know, and when I used to go scout, Paul, I'd go to look at a kid. I wanted to go look at a kid. I wouldn't go to the day. Well, I would, of course, but I would not just go to the game he was playing tomorrow. I would go to see him practice today because the way the kid practices is the way he's going to play the game. And that's the way I believed, you know. So what I did was if I went to see him practice, why waste my time going to the game? If I saw that he didn't practice good, I know he's going to play the same way the next day.
Right.
So why should So I'm surprised that he didn't even know I'm there. I didn't tell anybody. I just go to where they were practicing, see how he was. And that's the way I believe that that's how you can filter out kids and see what they're really made of, you know?
Absolutely. And I know from a past experience, I recently saw you on text with one of your students, and I think it was all about this student, and we're not mentioning names, but I remember you telling him that he lacked conviction
Yes.
and determination. He was falling behind in the count way too many times. He wasn't being aggressive, and he lacked conviction. So, that's so important.
Absolutely. And, I told him, I says, look, I can't go out there and throw the ball for you. I can only tell you what to do. I can work with you, this and that, but you are the final, word, basically. You're the final thing that's going to determine whether or not you're going to be good or not, and, I always say that, my college coach to say that you can't give someone a set of, they either have them or they don't.
Right. Exactly.
No, that's the truth. And no one ever had told me that I didn't have them, 'cause my college coach used to say, Kai, you got them, and I was so proud of that. But some of the kids, just a lot of mostly, just can't do it. And they can't do it. And as much as they're trying, and I don't knock them for that. I always tell kids, look, I'd rather you be a good person than be a bad person and a good ball player. I'd rather you be a good person and not a good ball player. Right?
That's what it's all about, Alfie. Absolutely, without a doubt. Well, Dave Caiazzo, this has just been a tremendous episode, and I think we've only scraped the surface on what you're all about, your illustrious career. And I want to thank you for being a guest of hashtag Paul Ponders. And I believe, this will be a tease for the listeners of hashtag Paul Ponders, that if you want to find out more about what Dave Caiazzo is all about, he's an author, and I think he's working on his second book. He'll be coming out with a second book soon. But there are just so many great stories, 37 great chapters. And the name of the book, again, is Life Tried to Throw Me a Curveball. I Overcame Diabetes to Become a Pro. And it's a great book. And it's really only available in audiobook right now. So it's a little shameless plug for a great audiobook. It was a great experience that I had in putting the audiobook together.
Hey, great job with it, Paul, by the way.
Thank you. Really, really was a great experience. But I want our listeners to just go and listen to the book and look forward to many more future episodes with Dave Caiazzo, author, baseball player, all-around great person. Dave, I want to thank you for being our guest today, and look forward to many more episodes down the road.
I really enjoyed it, Paul. It was great talking to you.
It's been great, Dave. Well, that about does it for this episode. Stay tuned for more episodes down the road. Hashtag Indeed. I trust that you have enjoyed hashtag Paul Ponders. Again, my name is Paul Solano of PSANDALL Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com to do some more pondering. Many thanks to my longtime collaborative friend and associate, Alonso Amos of PodPro Entertainment, in bringing you our fun, exciting, and informative podcasts. You rock, Techie Alonso. With PSANDALL Marketing Group, I created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me at paul@paulponders.com with any questions. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Paul Ponders. Follow us on Twitter at Paul Ponders Pod. Follow us on Instagram at Paul Ponders Podcast. Thank you again for listening to hashtag Paul Ponders, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our website, paulponders.com, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by PodPro Entertainment.
Hashtag Paul Ponders lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. Hashtag the new radio. Until we meet again, my friend, stay well. Hashtag indeed.